There are many kinds of children's shows out there in the world today. Many of them are quite great, while others only seem to flop horribly and then get canned as soon as they air. More often than not, there usually was a way more surplus of horrid cartoons airing than there were shows that actually gave a shit for what they do at the time. So far, every major television company has gone through a spell like this one, where all the shows seem to be more crap than anything, which is normal for a channel dedicated to cartoons. It's likely they'd be at least one period of time where everything that the studio touched would turn to garbage. Now, for a lot of people, this was Nickelodeon's current status during the animation dry spell of the early 2010s. Shows like Breadwinners, Fanboy and Chum Chum, Sanjay and Craig, and the abomination of a reboot that was Planet Sheen practically dominated the Nickelodeon channel, and didn't seem to be ending anytime soon. Hell, even SpongeBob SquarePants was suffering from seasonal rot that made it seem as though the writers wanted in on this trend of dying shows. Anything that was good, or at least passable by general audiences, likely chances were booted off the main network and placed into Nicktoons, where they would ultimately die a slow and painful death. This is what Nickelodeon had become at the time, and for many people who were completely dedicated to the channel since their youth, this wasn't a good sign. In fact, many people were even worried that the channel itself would soon be taken off syndication and never shown again for the rest of anybody's lives. Then, like the typical superhero of all major problems in the world, a show was aired that not only managed to get Nickelodeon to turn a complete 180 in regards to the way that they aired cartoons, but also managed to become one of the most popular cartoons on Nickelodeon until this very day. That show was called The Loud House. A simple concept in and of its own self of a young boy by the name of Lincoln Loud having to survive in a house with 10 other sisters by the name of Lenny, Lori, Lola, Lucy, Lily, Lisa, Lana, Lynn, and Luna, Luann, and not to mention the pets and Clyde McBride, Lincoln Loud's best friend. The plots of each of these episodes range from simple to downright insane at times, and yet everyone seemed to eat it all up, and is one of the most beloved cartoons besides SpongeBob SquarePants. And yet, despite its charming qualities, I absolutely hate it. This might come as a shock to whoever's listening or reading this, but I can't lie to myself when I say that I genuinely find the show to be horrible. I mean, let's just start off with the simple basic reason of why I despise a show. And the major reason would be the characters themselves. Lincoln Loud. Probably the only character in the whole show that I actually find passable, if not genuinely likable. Clyde McBride. An okay character, but honestly, I, more or less, have more of a neutral feeling over him. If anything, I think he's only there just to be the simple token best friend that most shows at that time tend to have. Lily Loud. She's a baby, so honestly, she gets a pass. Lisa Loud. Basically, she's the smart prodigy character that's smart just for the sake of being smart. Although I will admit that her failings do seem to kind of keep her from being a Mary Sue. I mean, it's good, but at the same time, she's still kind of more of a blander character. Not a bad one, but definitely not on my top 5 list. Luna Loud. Another okay character, but really, really annoying whenever she starts babbling on about rock music or something like that. And don't get me started on her horrid British accent. Lynn Loud Jr. She's not only way too sportsy for my taste, but it seems as her only honest characteristic in the show would have to be about sports. No depth, nothing really more than just that. Lucy Loud. Okay, she's actually probably a pretty cool character. Dark and fucked up, yes, but overall, a particularly good character. I think more of a positive representation of the emo subculture, or goth, or whatever it may seem to be. I mean, normally I would hate that kind of thing, but for her, she manages to do it well. Lola Loud. Another decent one, pretty interesting tomboy, but still kind of a flat character. Lana Loud. A spoiled, entitled brat that makes me want to punch a goddamn hole in my wall every time she opens her bratty mouth. Needless to say, I hate this character with a full-on passion with the way that she acts. Lori Loud. The typical obsessed over a boy kind of girl who practically falls head over heels over that same boy that she likes. I mean, no different than characters like Tootie from The Fairly Odd Parents or Panini from Chowder. While not entirely a bad character and pretty responsible at times, her personality is still too, well, typical. Lenny Loud. This character's voice and personality not only makes me want to go up and blow up the nearest mall, but also go and punch the nearest valley girl across the face until she loses every single one of her teeth. Maybe it might just be me, but dear God, does her constant valley girl-esque talk and the usage of like in every sentence that she utters practically wants me to drive nails into my fucking ears. Needless to say, fuck Lenny. Luann Loud. By far one of the main reasons why I hate the show the most. She's annoying, her jokes suck, and she's a fucking psychopath. In fact, she's so freaking psychotic that it makes Jeffrey Dahmer look like an average, everyday human being compared to her. The amount of time she's nearly threatened the lives of her own family because of her bullshit is just sickening in my honest eyes. While I know that I might not have been too very detailed with why exactly I hate the show, I'm sure that many of you can agree with me that these are common faults that the characters have and that need to be greatly improved. With that said, despite the fact that I'm willing to respect others' opinions in regards to the show, I'm still often attacked online and even in real life because of how much hatred I have for that fucking show. And the very fact of the matter that the fanbase really seems to have a disdain and a hatred for anybody who doesn't even seem to want to kiss the ass of the show as much as possible. I know that there are many good Loud House fans out there, but my god, people, there are unfortunately few and in between of whoever it comes with dealing with the Loud House. Hell, I can't even begin to mention the amount of disgusting artwork these people tend to send me on my inbox on a daily basis. Much of which is way too adult-oriented and sickening. But despite everything, my opinion still remains the what it is. Especially after the events with Chris Savino. But I won't go into that much detail right now, as I've already wasted enough time in telling the rest of my story. The way that I managed to get this episode, however, was unexpected. Yet at the same time, I guess kind of expected, if that makes any kind of sense, which it probably doesn't. To explain, I got this video file from another insane fanboy who, while sending me the video, told me to go and shove a cactus up my ass or something like that, for hating the show. At the time, I didn't even bother downloading it, due to fear of it being a Trojan virus that could easily come up and fuck over my computer, and instead just left it alone for a good few weeks. I don't know why I just didn't delete the thing right then and there, but I honestly just figured that if I had seen it again, I'd just get rid of it. So I just let it kind of get lost in the sea of emails. That is until my cousin Duke came over to my house and stayed over there for about the weekend. This wasn't exactly a very uncommon occurrence, due to the fact that his parents often dropped him off over to me to hang out or get some important projects or homework done if necessary. Well, my cousin had needed to use my computer for a project of his, so I pretty much let him use it for whatever it was that he was doing. After about 4 hours, he came back out of the guest room that I had set up for him, as per usual when he comes over, and he simply placed the laptop back on the kitchen counter and made his way over towards the pantry to grab a snack while I was cooking dinner for the two of us. Then, completely out of the blue, as he's grabbing a couple of Little Debbie cakes, he asked me, "Uncle Riley, can I ask you something?" I, of course, turn around and ask him what it was that he wanted to ask me. He simply sighed a bit before saying, "You seem to have done something to a bunch of people to get them to hate you so much. I mean, I couldn't even find the directions that I emailed to you that my teacher sent me so I could do my project." "Well, I mean, at least until I got to around the 4th page," he said. "Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous that they're doing that because I don't like the Loud House, but if you really do need to use another computer, I have a spare laptop near my bed you can use," I told him. "Thanks, and oh, by the way, whatever that video was in that folder, you might want to delete it. I don't know if it's some kind of leaked cartoon or something like that, but honestly, I don't want to either see you get in trouble or your computer to get fried, so yeah, if you find it, get rid of it." And with that, Duke left the kitchen and into my room to get the rest of this project done that he had needed for school. He passed with an A+, by the way. Now at the time I was a bit confused as to what the hell he was talking about. The laptop that I used was solely a work computer. I had no videos on there at the time. And then I remembered that one video that insane fan had sent me, which I didn't download, or at least I didn't remember downloading it. Making my way over towards my closed laptop, I quickly opened it up and turned it on. After it finally booted up all the way, I began searching around on my computer for that video file that Duke had told me about. I checked the videos folder, but there was nothing there. Then I remembered that the file was most likely downloaded, so me being the dumbass that I was, I made my way over to the download file, and after searching for a good 10 minutes, I wound up finding the file. Looking at what the file was, I saw that it was entitled ABC Catastrophe.mp4. Sure enough, I was going to simply delete the file and move on with my life, but I stopped and thought about it for a moment. I mean, why not watch it? Of course, the idea of someone loading this video with various encrypted malware was still a rather high possibility, so for the sake of safety reasons, I quickly closed the window holding the file and entered into my virtual machine. Then and only then did I finally click on the video to play it in order to keep myself from getting screwed over. The video started up with the intro of the show that I dreaded the most, The Loud House. I simply groaned with annoyance as the song's upbeat tone played. I should have figured that it was something based on the show, although no doubt in my mind that it had been sent by that troll to either try and get me to like the show or something, or show me some rather messed up Loud House porn that would forever fuck my head for years to come. Sure enough, I just wound up hitting a random button on my key, thinking that I had hit the escape key to try and get out of it, but I only managed to full screen the damn thing. At this point, I simply just said, I don't give a fuck anymore, and just decided to get the torture over with. If it would get those trolls to stop flooding my inbox with more crap, then I guess it was worth the risk. The episode started off, once the intro had ended, with the startup of the title card, with background music to boot. The top right of the comic-based title card showed the main title of the episode, ABC Catastrophe, written in the show's usual font. The lower left panel showed Lisa Loud running away from an explosion that was nearly inches away from burning her alive, while the crowd of people on the right side of the title card just stood there and looked kind of screwed up. Deformed would kind of be more of a better way of saying it, but they definitely didn't look right. I mean, like I mentioned above, Lisa was an okay kind of character, but still too irrationally smart for my taste. Once the title card had finished working its magic, the scene faded into the typical startup of each and every Loud House episode, with a shot of the exterior of the house in all its glory. Then, the scene cut to show the interior of the living room, with Lincoln Loud just sitting down on the couch, relaxing and reading a comic book, as he usually does. After about a few seconds of simple quietness, a loud muffled boom was heard in the background. Lincoln immediately jumped at the sudden loud noise, his comic flying across the room in the process. Just as he was about to say something, Lisa's muffled voice could be heard yelling out, "Confound it!" Lincoln immediately made his way up the stairs, trying to see what the cause of the explosion was. Well, that, and see if his little sister was okay. Upon making his way towards Lisa's door, he quickly opened it up without knocking, and was met with an avalanche of green bubbles engulfing him in nearly an instant. As Lincoln struggled to get out of the bubbly mess, Lisa simply floated over on some kind of hovercraft, and carefully pushed the bubbles back into her room with it, followed by closing the door. "Experiment number 522. Floating bubbles is the bust," Lisa said in her usual lisp. Lincoln immediately got up from the spot that he had been buried in just a short while ago, and then proceeded to ask Lisa, Lisa, what in the world was that?" Lisa adjusted her glasses a bit before saying, "That is, or was, an experiment for science fair this year," Lisa said, grunting. "Oh, right, I forgot the science fair was coming up," Lincoln said excitedly. "So, what's your experiment going on in there?" "It was supposed to be a more eco-friendly way to power motor vehicles instead of using the typical fossil fuels. But, as you can see, my project became unstable and blew up," Lisa answered. "Huh. That actually is a pretty darn good idea, Lisa. I mean, think of it. Being able to save our planet without having to ever use gas again, and being able to use cars in our Vanzilla as much as we want without having to really worry about anything? That's a great idea, Lincoln said, trying to encourage her. Well, as grateful as I am, fellow male sibling, of your opinion, I'm afraid that due to the recent events that had just transpired, I'm going to need to go right back to the drawing board, Lisa said before making her way back into the room, closing the door in the process. Lincoln simply sighed and then began doing his usual introduction of what was going on that day. My sister Lisa is a pretty talented 4-year-old, that's for certain. She can build, fix, and just about teach anything that even our parents don't even know. However, she's been pretty fixated on the science fair at this important college that Lisa's wanted to go to for some time. She's hoping that if she wins first place, she'll finally get the opportunity to get the full-page scholarship of the school. Lincoln then proceeded to go back down in the living room and then went back to reading his comic, before all 9 of his sisters immediately emerged from behind the couch, scaring the ever-living crap out of Lincoln in the process for the second time. So, bro, did you find out what Lisa's up there doing? Luna Loud, the main rocker of the group, asked. Well, she was working on another project for the science fair this year, but let's just say it kinda blew up in her face a bit, Lincoln said. You know, if she's having trouble with the whole thing, why don't we just help her out? Lenny said in her usually Valley Girl accent. Guys, I don't know if that's a good... Lincoln said, but was quickly interrupted by all the other sisters agreeing with what Lenny had said, but before Lincoln could stop any of them, they immediately had dashed off screen. Now, for the sake of saving some time, I'm not going to go into much detail about what went on for the next 5 or 6 minutes into the episode, because it really wasn't anything that was, well, new or interesting. But for anybody curious to know what it was basically all the Loud sisters trying to do their own experiments of sort and place it next to where Lisa was making her project, in order to try and more or less inspire her to do something with it. Which, of course, Lincoln, every single time, had to sneak into Lisa's room and get rid of that specific thing before it caused some kind of issue with Lisa's work. And this is where the main chunk of the episode's disturbing nature winds up kicking in, during the main presentation of that specific project. The scene itself fades out for a bit before fading back in to show a large, pristine, and very modern-looking college campus gymnasium filled to the brim with older teens and adults alike. The scene cut to show Lisa setting up her project booth, which seemed to look like a contraption that you'd put something in on the top and something else would come out the other end, or something like that. As she wound up finishing her booth and placing the device on top of the table, all the Loud family, including Rita and Lynn Sr., made their way towards where Lisa was at and then proceeded to give the young girl a full-fledged pep talk, which Lisa accepted. Then came the time for the presentations. 3 people, 2 men and 1 woman all dressed in suits, began making their way to each and every person that had set up their own project. Since this was a cartoon and all, they all managed to finish up everyone's project rather quickly before making their way over towards Lisa's main project. And let's see. We have Miss Lisa, am I correct? The young dark-haired female judge asked the young girl. Why, yes, ma'am. I promise you that what you'll say will surely fill your eyes with wonderment and excitement, Lisa said as sweat poured down her brow. Okay, then. Let's see what you got. The tall African-American man with a larger black suit, another judge said with a smile before pulling out his clipboard. Lisa then proceeded to make her way over towards where the contraption was at, and after climbing onto the table, using a step stool to get to the large red button near the top of the device, she coughed a little bit and then spoke. My fellow judges, after careful brainstorming and various testing, I've managed to come up with a device that may end world hunger as we know it. Third world countries, the homeless, and many other people in the world will never hunger again once this device, the Hunger Crusher 6000, turns on, Lisa began. Very interesting, Miss Lisa. But, might I add, how exactly does this device, how is it able to do such things? What does it do? What does it need to fuel up with, and how much quantity of food can this specific device provide? The lengthy Caucasian man, the third and final judge, said with a bit of skepticism in his voice. It's rather simple. You see, the device is powered by the oxygen that we breathe in each and every single day, so no other electrical or solar-powered device is needed to power it. Also, the way that the machine knows what to create for your specific food desires is by placing your thumb on this small scanner right here, Lisa said as she pointed towards a small scanner near the bottom of the machine. When it finishes scanning, the small DNA molecules plus small electrodes that flow quickly into your brain and back at the speed of light will then generate the specific food that you desire at the time, your taste preferences, and how much food you want. Then, it'll generate the food using various molecule converters and proteins to craft the food that you've desired. And then, your meal will come out at the end chamber, hot and ready to eat, and at a perfect portion that will not only be enough to satisfy you as well, but minimize and completely eliminate food wastage. "Do you mind if I give this a test run?" the female judge asked. "Why, certainly, be my guest," Lisa quipped as she motioned for the female judge to test out the product. The female judge then proceeded to place her thumb on the base of the scanner, which quickly read whatever it was that she was hungry for. And, within a few seconds, a hot molten chocolate lava cake with vanilla bean ice cream on the side landed on a plate on the from the side chute. The female judge quickly takes the plate and then proceeded to take a bite out of the dessert, which, as expected, she immediately falls in love with and devours the cake in seconds. "That was amazing!" the female judge calls out, her face smothered in chocolate and ice cream. "Hey, I want to try that!" the other African-American judge calls out, completely abandoning his formal etiquette in the process. "Yeah, me too," the other judge calls out as well. The two judges then proceed to place their thumbs, one at a time, towards the scanner. And then, in an instant, the first meal of the judge was brought out. A large T-bone steak with a baked potato and roasted asparagus. The other dish was a bowl of mashed potatoes, smothered in gravy, corn, and deep-fried chicken chunks. Kind of similar to the KFC famous bowl for a better visual. Once the two judges eat to their fill, all three of them look at Lisa with wide smiles on their faces. "Well, my fellow judges, I think we already know who our winner is," the female judge said. The other two judges nodded in agreement, and then they make their way over towards where the other participants of the science fair were at. The next scene soon comes up to show the aftermath of the judging, to which one of the judges, the skinny one, was the one announcing the final vote for the first place winner, which, as many would have guessed, was Lisa Loud. At this, Lisa immediately makes her way on stage with her parents and siblings all cheering her on in the process. As Lisa makes her way on stage, the same judge initiating the vote immediately handed Lisa a large trophy and a medal, followed by a full-fledged scholarship wrapped up in a red bow. Lisa thanked the man, clearly on the verge of tears, and the judge simply thanked her for her amazing accomplishments, as well as pointing out to other people, mostly teachers, who were sampling the food products coming from the device. Lisa manages to stand triumphant for a good minute or so. That is until the female judge quickly clenches her stomach, and the sound of violent gurgling starts to drown out the cheering and applause of the crowd. Then, in almost an instant, the female judge falls down and lets out a loud, blood-curdling scream as she falls to the ground, writhing in pain and agony, shaking like a leaf. Everyone quickly stops what they were doing, and then immediately stares over to where the female judge had once stood. Meanwhile, the music in the episode had cut off and was now silent for the time being. Then, as the camera zoomed in on where the judge was at, she immediately sprang back up on the table, revealing a gruesome series of animations that pretty much freaked me out. To put it in the easiest way possible, half of the woman's body had now been turned into a large, swollen, cake-like texture and mixture that expanded onto each and every part of her body with each and every second passing. Soon, her whole body was engulfed into the brown mixture, silencing her screams, before she quickly fell off the judge's table and onto the ground with a soft plop. The rest of her body soon molded into the shape of the same chocolate lava cake that she had eaten before, powdered sugar and all. Hell, even the cracked open part of the cake started to ooze out molten chocolate which stained the gym floor with a thick, gooey consistency. There was silence for a bit before the camera cut to another one of the judges, the African American one, who began screaming as well, as his whole body began to slowly but surely melt down, chunks of flesh dropping to the ground in a slightly fluffy and melted kind of consistency, like mashed potatoes. His face and hair were the last thing to melt down, and to say that it was graphic would be an understatement. His entire head and brown hair melted it down to the mashed potato mixture and clumped together to form the single gravy mixture. Following that, chunks of his body that hadn't fallen into the potatoes or gravy simply morphed into the same chicken fried chunks that he had eaten earlier that was on top of the meal. His screams soon enough died off as well. Once that horror had ended, everyone in the gym began freaking the fuck out immediately. People were screaming and crying, throwing away any of the food they had gotten from the machine down to the ground before anything could happen to them. Although for those that had already taken at least a bite of the meal that they had eaten, it was already too late for many of them. Soon, almost half the students and teachers that had eaten the food had started morphing and turning into the same food that they had eaten. One teacher had turned into a pile of fish sticks, and another turned into a slop of vanilla pudding. The other, one of the students, wound up turning into a shredded pulled pork sandwich, which, might I add, was likely the worst transformation of them all. The scene then cut back to Lisa, who just stared on in complete and utter shock, not blinking, but simply witnessing the horror transpire right in front of her. It was then that Lincoln had managed to run onto the stage and yell, "Lisa, what the heck is going on? Why the heck is everybody turning into food?" I... Lisa stuttered before she quickly made her way towards the machine and turned it off quickly, although it seemed to do no good. Everyone was still turning into various giant food items at a rapid pace, while everyone that wasn't affected scampered towards a door in a huge rush, trying to get out as soon as possible. "There's gotta be an explanation for what's going on, Lisa," Lincoln said as he averted his eyes from the carnage that was currently going on. I think I might know what the problem is now," Lisa said as she stared at a screen on the back of the machine that hadn't been seen before. You know that phrase, "you are what you eat"? Lisa asked. Yeah? Lincoln asked. "Well, think of that phrase instead of being a metaphor actually being literal. From what I'm getting from these stats, the machine had somewhat managed to take some of the DNA from the people, from the ones who had eaten the machine's meals, and then once ingested, their DNA would soon become corrupted from the meal itself, and then start to scatter and change the molecules that made the food, thus turning them into the food that they had eaten," Lisa explained, shaking. There's gotta be a way to reverse this, Lisa. You should know what to do," Lincoln said, half encouragingly and half freaking out. Lisa's face grew into a full panic moan as she fell down to the ground. Wrapping herself up in a fetal position, she screamed out, "There isn't a reverse for this!" The phrase soon echoed out a few times, as the episode soon faded out from the panned-out point of view of the insanity that was going on in the gym. Soon, it faded out, and then back in to show a new scene. This scene being one outside of the gym with various medical professionals, taking away the various variety of body bags of multiple sizes and shapes, and placing them into the ambulances. Lisa sitting down on the steps with Lincoln, still shocked at the events that had transpired before her. Then the rest of the family made their way out of the gym, covered in green blankets, and then made their way towards Lisa. The family instantly embraced each other, while all the sisters began asking Lisa if she was okay, to which Lisa proceeded to ask the same thing to them. They all simply started saying how freaky everything was that night, with Luann even making a crappy joke to try and lighten up the mood a bit. Everything seemed to be going okay until a man stepped forward towards Lisa and let out a Lisa turned around slowly, only to be met with a large man. A large African-American man with the words, Dean, written on a gold-plated badge near his chest. Lisa Loud, the Dean began. Sir, look, it was all an accident. I swear, I didn't know what was going on. Lisa began, trying to explain herself, but soon was interrupted by the Dean saying, Do you realize what you've done, young lady? The Dean scowled. Your little machine not only managed to create chaos in this gym, but took the lives of nearly half our teachers and students as well. The Dean continued. Not only that, but now we're being sued by nearly half the audience for mental and emotional damages as well. That right there is already going to cost the school millions, all because of your pathetic machine. Lisa began to well up with tears, and soon the other Loud siblings attempted to try and convince the Dean that Lisa could have easily fixed the whole situation, but the Dean was having none of it, and instead told the other kids to pipe down, as it was between him and Lisa. Now, despite the damage that you've caused, the Board of Education is willing to forgive you and not press charges at what's been done today, as it wasn't entirely your fault, and that it was only an accident. However, they're only willing to do this if you do one thing. What's that? Lisa said as she shuddered. You must give up your awards and forfeit your scholarship to the school forever. And on top of that, you are forever barred from coming to the school as a student. Yet, you are allowed to come and visit any and all family members with permission by me and the other staff. Or, you could keep what you have, but get hit with many lawsuits in juvie until you reach the age of 18. It's your choice, the Dean said firmly. Lisa, now silently bawling to herself, slowly handed over her trophy and medal, and then her scholarship, which the Dean tore in half instantly without another word. I'm sorry, Lisa. I'll make sure to let the administration know about your decision. You and your family are free to go now. I'll make sure to have the letter of denial sent to you so that you don't forget about the agreements that we've made. And with that, the Dean turned and walked away. The other Loud siblings looked down at the younger sister with a mixture of shock and sadness on their faces. Lisa, on the other hand, just stood there and continued to cry, before making her way towards Vanzilla. The other students that she had passed glared at her with a deep hatred in their eyes as they saw her walk by. The rest of the family soon followed suit and then drove back home. The scene then faded for the final time to show what appeared to be the very next day. Lincoln had already gotten up at this point and was making his way over towards where Lisa's room was, obviously trying to apparently talk with her and cheer her up in any way that she could give. There was no response. Now, normally in this kind of situation in the Loud house, the other sisters would band together and try and help Lisa get back her scholarship by coming up with a serum or something similar to reverse the effects of the food epidemic, which would most likely be successful and everything would be fine in the end. But in this case, that didn't happen. Before Lincoln could open the door, there was a loud blast that erupted into blue light that flashed underneath the door. Lily's crying could be heard from inside of the door, which immediately alerted the parents and the other siblings. After a few failed attempts at opening the door, Lynn Loud managed to break the door down with the hardest kick that she could muster. Upon entering the room, everyone immediately made their way over towards Lily, who was now crying up a storm. Lincoln, on the other hand, simply stared in horror at what he was staring at off-screen. The scene panned over to what Lincoln was looking at, only to find a large, burnt area in the middle of the floor. Right next to it was a single vaporizer that still had smoke and bits of lightning spewing out from it. Lincoln immediately started to panic and freak out, which triggered the others to see what Lincoln was looking at as well. Lincoln then made his way over towards where the burnt area of the carpet and noticed a note that was typed onto the computer right next to it that read, "Read me." Lincoln immediately clicked on the online note document, which automatically started triggering out a print of a piece of paper with the typical scribble lines on it coming out from the printer. Upon completion, Lincoln grabbed the note and began reading it aloud. My dearest family, I regret to inform you all that if you had managed to get this letter, that I have already been vaporized. While I know that this may be a difficult situation that I put you all through, you must understand the reason why I have decided to take in the route that I have taken. After the events of the college food freakout, as I call it, and losing the one thing that I had greatly desired to achieve in my existence, I decided that I would quit doing what I would do forever. However, despite these things being major components of my decision to end my life, the main reason that was the, quote, straw that broke the camel's back was the very fact that I had taken the lives of many innocent people with my device, and that there's nothing that can be done to reverse the effects, and even if I could manage to turn them back into their human forms, it wouldn't be enough to bring them back to life, as a lack of oxygen flow to their brains would have already made them deceased by the time they had turned back into their human form. So like with my many inventions, it was all pointless. I wish to sincerely apologize to any of you if you are deeply hurt by what I have done. But understand, my fellow siblings, that it's for the greater good and safety of not just you all, but everyone else in the world as well. Even still, I thank you all greatly for the love and care you have all given me throughout my life. It was truly the best thing that I have ever been gifted with, and I'm grateful for having a wonderful family like you. Also, for if you're wondering, my death was painless as well, and I've made sure of it that there was nothing left of me, so that burial procedures, or whatever may be done, won't be an issue. Thank you all for the wonderful life you have given me. I love you all dearly, and if there is an afterlife, I hope to see you all there one day. Salutations, and thank you. Your sister, Lisa Loud. The entire family immediately broke down into tears upon realizing what had happened to their younger sister. I myself was deeply disturbed at what had happened in front of me. The scene then faded out, before finally ending with the credits. Sure enough, I was about as disturbed could be when it came to this episode. Not wanting to look at it again, I deleted the file from my hard drive, and pretty much did what I could to try and forget about it. Sooner or later, I had actually managed to recover from that disturbing incident that I had played on my computer. Now, as for the asshole that had sent me the video in the first place, I managed to get in contact with this person and sent him a rather colorful message telling about how much of an ass he was and that he should go fuck himself, and, well, the typical kind of pissed off banter that people usually spout out when they're relatively angry. In reply, this person who had sent me the video then proceeded to start telling me that he had contacted Viacom Network about the video that I had supposedly stolen from them when I had downloaded the file. I would have demanded more information about what the hell he was going on about, but the bastard somehow managed to delete the entire email conversation from his laptop. Presumably, I guess he was probably a skilled hacker or a doxer or something like that and was able to do it. Soon enough, I had gotten an email from Viacom Network basically threatening me by saying that if I didn't turn in the video in the next week or so, I would not only be sued for breach of copyright, which was bullshit, but would also be likely have charges filed against me for the theft as well. I knew that when it came to the corporations like Viacom, there wasn't much I could do to try and convince them about my case, and about what had happened to me, given the fact that this asshole doxer had managed to sit there and somehow hack into my computer and delete the emails, thus removing the evidence that I've had. So I simply took the little video file that I had, which, for anybody wondering, I actually did somehow make a copy of it, and then sent it back to them via their email. Now you might be thinking that everything would have been fine after that, especially since I had deleted the copy of the video from my laptop afterwards. But unfortunately this wasn't the case. While Viacom had said that they wouldn't sue me, they wound up going back on their promise and then proceeded to file charges on my behalf for stealing their content, to which the county jail was notified nearly immediately. I was then called up by the sheriff of the county, who I happen to be good friends with, by the way, who told me that while he knew that it was all a load of crap what they were doing to me, they still had to follow up with the arrest. And they just told me to just pretty much spend the rest of the day getting anything that I might need, or better yet, getting everything ready, or things like that, so that way I wouldn't have to worry about any of those things when I was in jail. So as I currently speak, I'm on my computer typing up my story, waiting for the police to come and cuff me and take me to jail. But I guess the best way to wrap this story up before they come is this. To the person who framed me for the crime that I didn't commit and then proceeded to give me a screwed up clip like that, I say these 3 words and I hope they stay buried within your subconscious. Go fuck yourself.
In fear and surprise as your eyes widen, your mouth goes dry with each battered breath. You try to scream, your mind begs to leave, glued to your computer screen. The killers they slash, the tapes burn and crash. The cartridge you bought will be your final haunt. The rituals of hate will seal your fate. The tears you shed will be from a fear-gripping, horror-driven, nightmarish, gore-filled, terrorizing, hateful, burning, violent, rage-inducing, knife-slashing, blood-splattering, silent screams. Only time will tell if you will escape this online hell. Your horror-filled obsessions will come with its own regressions. Your pathetic screams will not be heeded in any way, because your nightmares will come at